is a good example of how, leveraging some of the features in console. So as I mentioned, console does health checks and it will know when something's, not available, but that's kind of the extent of it. It doesn't send notifications. It doesn't do any of that. That's up to you, right? So there's another open source project called Console Alerts. And all it does is it's a console client that monitors health checks. So when a health check changes, then it will send a notification, do whatever you want. So all you're configuring it with Console Alerts is, what's the notification schedule, what are the avenues of notification, and such. It uses the distributed locks to do automatic leader election. So since this Console Alert is so important, we want to make sure it's up, right? There's no point of having a single point of failure in your, service notification or your uptime service, right? So the great thing about this is you could have 3, 4, 5, 100, doesn't matter. There's only going to be one leader at a time, right? So in our environment, we stood up 3, and each of those Console Alert services are on each of the console server boxes, right? So, as long as one of the console servers are up, there's going to be one console alert service running, right? So you're leveraging the cluster that way, right? Another nifty thing is console alerts, the configuration entirely lives in console itself. So you're not copying and pasting and making sure all the configs are the same. It's all read out of the key value store in console. So it makes it really easy to deploy. You just spin up another binary, point it to the cluster, configuration's all centralized, right? So this is an example. This is just a screenshot of the console KV store. So I'm using the console binary as the CLI. I'm going to say I want to use the KV store. I want to get values. I want you to recursively get all the values, and I want you to start getting the values from this path, this key value path, right? So console alerts config, and these are all the configurations, right? So if you can see, we have a notifier. We have an email notifier that's disabled, and our primary notification method is Slack, right? So we have the Slack channel, how much details to provide, is it turned on, what's the icon, and the hook for the Slack URL, right? And this is what it looks like. So when things go down, and this guy always goes down, it'll tell you, hey, console alerts is critical, this is the service, you can show more, and I'll give you the full health check response. And yeah, it's pretty simple. I think it's worked pretty well. It's been crazy. It required some tweaking, like there's too much flapping, so you have to tweak it a bit. This machine in specifically is a little funny because this WMI exporter is a service to support Prometheus, which I'll talk about. But I think it's a little bit heavy to pull those metrics. So when you're requesting for that, it's like taking too long, and that's why it's timing out. But this machine supports our Jenkins cluster. So sometimes when there's a build, it gets really heavy, and then the metrics are not populated fast enough, and then console freaks out saying, "Hey, you're down," right? But yeah, so that's console, and that's console alerts. So any questions with console? Or it's kind of a foundation service, right? Because you want that ability to do service registration, deregistration, and you want a centralized key value store. And and you'll see with the next product, the HashiCorp Vault, it uses console. So again, it's kind of a foundational piece, right? Any questions with that?
How would I use? Do you have a use case for AWS?
With console?
Would I use it in AWS, or do you think to pull logs out of the CloudTrail or CloudWatch for logs?
You could. The thing with AWS is they kind of have all these functionalities baked in. So AWS, they have auto-scaling groups. They have, so, some of the issues with, traditional data centers and coordinating with, network and configuring the load balancer. That's kind of solved with console. When you go to AWS, like it's all there, right? So you might as well just leverage that, right? So you can, it really depends, right? But there's more to it, right? Like maybe you want that key value store, and maybe you don't want to use Redis. Maybe you want, so, you know, there's no right or wrong answers, whatever's best suited for you, right? So Vault, so kind of going back to Vasile's question, you know, what kind of data would you put in the key value store? Anything that's not sensitive, right? So like for console alerts, just the configuration is fine, right? So for secrets, for sensitive information, HashiCorp has a product called Vault. And it's a separate service. Again, it's just a single binary. And it's a highly available secret management solution. So kind of like CyberArk, right? The good thing about Vault is if you leverage it with console as the storage backend, it becomes highly available, right? So you could have 5 Vault servers, and they're all talking to the same backend, right? So if any one of those goes down, it doesn't matter. Right? So again, highly available when configured with console. It has a nifty thing with its encryption key. So again, if you want to be a secret management solution, you have to have your data encrypted at rest. So it has a concept of a vault that is either sealed or unsealed, right? So when it's unsealed, you know, it's decrypted, so you could actually, the vault service could leverage data coming in and out. When it's encrypted, when it's sealed, you can't do anything with it. Like, it doesn't have the decryption key in memory. It just doesn't know. So if you restart the vault server, it'll see the backend, it's all encrypted, and it has no means to decrypt it. You have to unseal it. What's really nifty about this is you could shard that key, right? So instead of just having one key with one person that have the complete access to unlock and unlock it, that's a little sketchy, right? So you could shard it as many times as you want. So I think the default is 5 shard keys. So you have 5 unique keys, and it's kind of like, you know, submarine launch control, where you have to have both keys turned on to send the missile out. Same idea. So when a vault is sealed and you want to unseal it, you'll need to, you know, provide 3 out of the 5 keys, right? So if I only have 1 key, Danny has 1 key, Naveen has 1 key, we all have to get together, or it's never going to get open, right? So this is an, you know, additional layer of security there, right? So someone can't just copy the database, run off, go home, and unseal it. No, that's not how it works, right? They have a good concept of token expiry. So all the access tokens into Vault has a fixed expiration date. It could be relatively long, but there's no way around it. The only token that does not have an expiration date is the root token. And that should just be used once on setup and hidden away with the Vault encryption keys for forever. So every token expires. Tokens could be renewed. You just have to go in and say, I want to renew it. And there's policies to govern how many times you could renew, how long things should live. So there's a lot of good controls there, right? So you don't have to worry about, hey, this token was created, I don't know where it is now. Don't worry, it's going to expire, as long as your policies are sane, right? Another good thing is they're hierarchical. So it's like vampires. If you kill the first vampire, all the vampires die. Same thing. If you terminate, you know, the key that created additional keys, they all die. Right? So it's a really good break glass situation there. Accessor tokens, another cool feature. Anytime you get a token, say when you log in, they'll give you the token that you used to log in and an accessor token. So the idea of an accessor token is you can't use it to log in. You can't really do anything except look up information about the token, the sibling token, and terminate the token, right? So this is really good for auditing, right? So you could say, you know, in your audit logs, you could say the seal requested a token. You started doing some crazy stuff. We got to cancel this token, but I don't want to use his actual token to do that. Then you publish the accessor token, and then someone with authority could use that and terminate his key, right? Secrets versioning, so that's self-explanatory, really nice. Dynamic secret generation is another thing that kind of puts Vault, you know, apart, I think, is the concept of dynamically creating access on request, right? So the idea is you configure Vault to just say create database users, right? So Vault has the credentials to create database users, and all you do is request Vault. Please give me a login. They'll give you a login that's going to be managed with an expiry, and then as soon as it expires, they'll go back into the database, kill that account, and you're done, right? So that's a really good way of managing access. You have an hour to do what you got to do, and then you're done. I don't have to follow up. It's all automatic, right? So in terms of secret generation, they have a bunch of secret engines, is what they call it. So you can leverage it with AWS with AIM, tons of different databases, SSH, right? So you could do SSH. Also for certificates, right? So, any SIs here, they'll know sometimes you're going to have to get a certificate signed and created with SDS, and they have an internal certificate. You can leverage Vault to do all of that automatically, right? You could have the signing of the CA certificate in there, and you say, I want a new certificate, you provide the information, you automatically get that signed certificate back, right? And whether or not you could request one, whether or not you could do all these things is part of a policy. There's a robust, policy solution as part of this. And auditing, again, is super important. What's really cool about Vault is that you could establish multiple auditing mechanisms, right? So they're kind of fail-safes, right? So I can have an auditing mechanism that puts the audit logs into S3 buckets, and then I have another one that's just outputting it to standard out. I don't know. What's interesting is if you have multiple auditing mechanisms, they all have to confirm that they wrote out that log. Otherwise, you don't get anything, right? So if I can't write the S3, you're not getting anything, right? So it kind of enforces this audit. Right? And here's kind of an example. So we have Vault integrated with LDAP. So I'm saying, I want to do an LDAP authentication. I want to use the investors group LDAP. And here's my username. And here's my token that I can use to log in. And here's the accessor token to kill it. Here's my duration. Is it renewable? Yes, no. And here are the policies that are applied to this token. Here's the UI. So these are kind of authentication mechanisms. So I just have the investor group LDAP and the McKinsey LDAP in there. This is kind of what it looks like when you go in. So this is leveraging, just a key value store. It's all hidden. Here shows versioning. You can get it in JSON format. Pretty straightforward. It's key value, but it's encrypted, right? Any questions about Vault? It's pretty nifty stuff. It's especially when everything's all RESTful APIs. It's really easy to leverage, right? And one of the reasons why we spun this up is, we need a place to put our secrets. Like, where do we put it in a key pass file? Like, how do we leverage our services to use secrets? So like Jenkins. So Jenkins has a centralized secret management within Jenkins. But what if we need that same credentials exposed to, I don't know, Bitbucket or another service? It doesn't make sense to just have it in Jenkins, right? So the idea is to have this external third-party secret management solution, and then all the services can access the same one. It's all centralized, it's audited, it's, so it's a lot more robust than just using per application secret management solutions. Prometheus. So Prometheus what is Prometheus? It's an open source project used to record real-time metrics into a time series database, right? So really, it's for APM, right? It's developed by SoundCloud, initial release in 2012. SoundCloud is pretty popular, a lot of traffic, so it's kind of been battle tested. The functionality does it provide? It uses a pull model, which is interesting. So going back to console alerts, and you saw that alerts, it goes WMI exporter critical. So the idea is the services you want to monitor or get metrics from, they're publishing the metrics, right? So if you're a Windows machine, you could use the WMI exporter, and it creates a RESTful API, an endpoint, where Prometheus could go and just fetch the metrics, right? That's convenient because if you're developing an application, if you're supporting an application, you could do all these things ahead of time. This is where my exporter information is, and then you just register it with console. You communicate with the Prometheus team and say, look, ingest my information, right? The way we're using Prometheus, we leverage it with console to make that process a lot more automatic, and we'll get into that a little bit, right? So again, integrates with console for service discovery, and then Prometheus is pretty popular, and it integrates with a lot of other open source solutions. So Grafana is an open source dashboarding solution, so there's already support for that. So I could create a dashboard based off of the Prometheus metrics coming in. And one of the best things about Prometheus is it has a very robust query language, right? So it's really good for cutting up your metrics, right? And since I did not have enough time to prepare, improper time to prepare, it's kind of missing information. So let me just go show you what it looks like. So this is Prometheus, really simple. So these are all the available metrics that are being collected through all the exporters, right? So that's kind of what it looks like. So it's going to show you all the metrics for that element, their values, and you can start doing crazy queries where you could isolate it more, right?
How those metrics can improve our lives?
So I mean, you want to monitor CPU usage, memory usage, disk usage, how many HTTP requests are coming in, how many Docker containers are going up, anything you want. There's like a billion different exporters that are already established to support services.
I have a Jenkins job. It takes a long time.
Yep.
How can you use this tool to find out what takes more time, just compiling, built-in files or whatever?
Yeah, so you would leverage an exporter for Jenkins. So the exporter is going to expose this information. So this is what it will look like, right? So you're going to get a metric called Jenkins job color or whatever. And there's going to be a bunch of them. And you're going to use this to kind of capture that information. Did the job run? Did it fail? How many jobs are running? And then you could take that information and put it into a graphing solution, so it's easier to represent.
You need like a user on the Unix side, or if it's Unix box, to do this, or you set it up?
So again, the pull model makes it nice, right? So if you're managing the Jenkins server, but you have no access to Prometheus, then you could set up the exporter and say, hey, Prometheus guys, this is the URL to capture my metrics. Can you include it, right? That's all it takes, right? So you minimize the interaction between the two groups, right? Some other solutions will be like, oh, okay, tell me the metrics, launch an agent. Like, it's not as convenient, right? So if you look at our configuration here, let me show you the targets. These are all the different targets, right?
Michael, sorry, but
yeah.
To your point, do we need, if we need to monitor, let's say, series of AI exploits, which we don't have good access to, do we have to give them the parameters to install it or deploy it on the servers? Or?
Well, you need to install the exporter, right? So exporter is what's going to produce the metrics, and then Prometheus just grabs them and represents them, right? So you're in control of establish an exporter. You could create your own. You go write it in your whatever programming language. You could leverage one that's already created, and usually they run as a service. So it's really up to you, right?
Do we need to get their SES's approval before we can install this? If we decide to go that route, let's say.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the exporter, right? So depends on the exporter. So I think Jenkins, there's add-ons, so you just add it on, and then the export information will be there. So some applications are they have native plugins, and some of them are just natively support Prometheus export information. I forget which one, but it's pretty cool to see out of the box, like the metrics are already exposed. But if you are trying to capture, just say, system information. On a Linux system, they have a node exporter that has to run as a service. So yeah, you would have to get access to run the service. Same with Windows, there's a WMI exporter. You'd have to get access to run that, right? So yeah.
And Expose is on the SLHTP interface layer.
Sorry?
And the metrics are exported, I mean, exposed as.
Just, yeah, we could click on this one right here. That's it. So this is off of the FCO Jira APP1 box. It's the services, the exporter services on 9182 on the metrics path, and this is exactly what Prometheus goes.
Exporter is not setting it. Prometheus is pulling this. I mean,
it's pulling
that URL.
Yeah, it's polling like every.
Whatever metrics that the exporter collects and exports on that.
Right, exactly. And the good thing about this is maybe, you know, you have one application, but maybe there's separate teams that need to watch over this. They could all connect, right? Like anyone who wants to look at, you know, this machine's metrics, they're right here. It's no secret.
Basically, you can pull that information into Prometheus and make a dashboard in Grafana.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So what I did originally was I hard-coded all these targets. I'd be like, okay, Prometheus, go to this box, and this is the path, and that was no fun. So instead, we leveraged its service discovery. So Prometheus integrates with console, right? So console, if we register all these exporters as a service, one, you could automatically have health checks to say, hey, is your metrics not being published? Is it down? So that's nice to have, just like that box that failed. And now that it's available for service discovery in Prometheus, right? So all Prometheus has to do is say, hey, console, give me all your Prometheus exporters, and then it will build this list of targets, and off it goes, right? So that makes it even easier, right? So if you're already using console in your environment, now you don't even have to know about Prometheus. All you have to do is create your console service, which you want to see if your machine is up. You want to, you know, monitor your exporter services and your actual application, and then all that information goes to console, and then that's the end of it, right? So if the Prometheus team is somewhere else, they don't have to do anything. It all just shows up, right?
Can you customize the look and feel of each service checking, or?
So this thing does not care about looks. It doesn't. It just captures the information and just kind of organizes, orchestrates it. You could go to the UI to kind of fiddle. You could kind of do some basic graphs. Really, this is a good place to kind of test your query language. Just say you wanted to look up, okay, show me the amount of failed Jenkins jobs against the CPU load at the time. You could create a query to generate information that way, right? That's kind of the strength of Prometheus, is the ability to create a query language, a query to leverage all these different metrics, right? So yeah, like real quick, this is the config really, right? So it's just saying, you know, contact the console client to access the console service discovery, and then pull the target information in, right? So this is kind of a fixed list. I don't have to add any more to it. It's all through console. Right? Any more questions about Prometheus before we move on? All right, Grafana, say stuff about Grafana. So, sorry, I ran out of time. We're just going to do it live. So let's go to Grafana. So Grafana, again, open source dashboarding application. Uh-oh. Oh, that's terrible.
So There's some of the tools that are deployed while this is coming up. Some of the tools that we have deployed, Danny, as part of the DevOps, what's the process of other teams getting access to?
Yeah, so there is I would say the best way to find it is to go to Confluence and type in tools or tooling or whatever, and you'll get to the digital IS tools space. On the home page of that space is information on how to submit a request.
Okay.
And that takes you to our Jira project. And fill out the form and you say, I want access to, and you type the name of the tool, and it fires off a request to our team. It goes in a queue, and our team follows Kanban. So we will pull the work and action your request.
I saw it a couple of weeks ago. It's pretty nice the way it's set up.
Yeah.
A couple of people on the other side, they were asking about the URL. Also, kind of send it out for a while.
So we're working on a side note, we're working on a project. It's called Giraffe.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're going to pilot very, very soon. It's going to have a short URL.
Okay.
So it's going to be called ask.igm.tools.
Yeah.
You go there, you fill out a form, done.
There you go.
You've submitted your request. So we're working on that. It'll be piloted soon. So we'll pilot it with you guys.
Oh, there you go. Back to you, Mike.
So this is Grafana. Again, dashboarding application. You could customize the widgets. You could do all sorts of things here.
How do you feed data to this Grafana?
So when you're creating a dashboard, you get to dictate where your data source is, right? So you could, let's see, where am I? So data sources, right? So we only have one data source, say Prometheus, right? And then you're going to be using dashboards, or you're going to create a dashboard that leverages that data source, right? So if we're looking at this dashboard, it's pretty complicated. There's metrics for pretty much everything. I did not do this, right?
Let's say simple example. Stock market.
Yeah.
You take a stock market, it has streams.
Yeah.
So
we could look at this widget. So we go edit, right? And if you look at it, all it is a Prometheus query. It's a Prometheus query.
Oh, you have to use it.
So you say, what's the data source? Yeah. What's the data source? And then what do you want me to graph? Give me the information, right?
Basically, this one takes the Prometheus data and shows it to you as a dashboard.
That's right.
So we need to teach Prometheus how to take our data to prepare data for.
That's right.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, so Prometheus is a time series database. So you're telling it, okay, what metrics do you want to capture? And then this is just the dashboarding tool. So you're saying, where's your data source? Where's your collection of metrics? And then it graphs it.
Is this dashboard on request, or it just updates itself?
It refreshes itself, so you could, there's an automatic refresh interval. You could do quite a bit with it. It's pretty flexible. The one thing that you can do, and it kind of annoys me, is that you could create alerts here, right? So you could say, hey, I want a threshold right here, and send me an email. If you create a dashboard that is templated, so this is really just one dashboard file, and then there's pull downs to kind of switch the source, adjust the metrics to variables. You can't do alerts that way, which sucks. What should be done, and I think the most common pattern is, don't use this for complicated alerts. Use Prometheus for alerts. So Prometheus actually has a concept of rules and alerts, and you programmatically say, this is the query to check for CPU load, and if it's over, trigger an alert. And then there's another service that will consume that and send out notifications, right? But it's nice that Grafana has some basic alerting if you want to do something quick and dirty, right?
You're going to be using these tools, or these are just demos right now?
We're using it.
You're using it? So if I have a list of production servers that I want to set this up on, set up some dashboards and everything, for monitoring CPU disk space, minor things for each server, and just have a dashboard and you can see everything. Is that something we can
work towards? Yeah, as long as we have the right access.
Also, applications to see how our applications are used. Like a lot of times on that intranet server, the web server is running high and then everything is slow, and then if we see it before them, then we can just say, oh, we can restart the web server and then we're good, right?
Right.
Things like that, but I'm not sure if this can do the web server as well.
If you get metrics, it could do whatever you want. And again, Prometheus is popular enough that there's a lot of exporters already available, so you don't have to like code scraping metrics out of your application. Like chances are there's something out there for you, right?
The
So
only thing is we need to check with SES if we can install the kind of the clients of each of these servers.
yeah, so really all you have to install is the console thing, and it's a single binary, so you could just drop the file in there. It doesn't really, you know, and it runs as a service. And then you need your exporters, right? So it depends on what exporters you want to use. If you want to do system metrics, there's an exporter that runs as a service, and then any additional exporters for database monitoring, whatever, they may or may not run as a service. But that's all you really have to do.
So if you think about it, we've done this with Jira. It used to be on a Windows box in the data center.
Yeah.
Right? So you're talking about the same thing, right? Yeah, we migrated to Linux, but you know, you may have a Windows box in the data center where you want.
I have more AIX box.
Or AIX. So AIX we haven't done yet,
I'm
but
not sure about it.
so we could test it out. We do POC, right? See what SES says.
I have like memory environment servers the first time we work together. Maybe there's time. Try it.
Yeah, I mean, there's still work to be done in this. We haven't set up Prometheus alerts. That's something that is really important. Like right now, we have console alerts to tell us if the service is up or down, but we want to get a little bit more notification ahead of that. So getting, you know, an email saying, hey, your CPU usage is too high, your disk space is too high, your network is too high. That's the obvious next step. And then having these metrics, we can start, you know, finding patterns, like, you know, when, you know, early in the morning, there's more Jenkins builds and it just creates all this load. You could do a lot more analysis once you have that information available, right?
What if I have a JDBC data source? Can I hook it up directly to the dashboard?
Yeah, so they have exporters for databases. Usually it will run as a separate service and you need relatively high privileges on an account, so that will connect to that database and then expose the information. Most databases now have ways to kind of pull system information and metrics out of the client connection.
I probably misunderstood. I have some data in a database.
Okay.
Data. I just have some real-time data somewhere stored in a table. I want to expose it on the dashboard.
I would look at available dashboards in Grafana, and if they support that data source, yeah, probably, maybe. If it's time series, it might be able to work with it. I haven't checked though. The other cool thing about Grafana is there's a community for dashboards. So, you know, find something that aligns to you and just use it. It's just a JSON file, really, right? So you could download the JSON file, upload it.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So there's a MongoDB exporter and SQL exporter.
Yeah. But you might want to put it into like a time series, like a dedicated time series database, like InfluxDB or something similar, just because it's natively efficient with time series data. But if it's already available, yeah, and it supports it, why not?
What about permissioning? Can you lock down certain dashboards to specific users?
I would assume so. I haven't really gone into that in depth. Let's see. Right now, we have, we're authenticating with LDAP, so there are authentication mechanisms that do work, but splitting permissions, I'm not sure. I actually didn't look into that.
Has anyone used Tableau here?
In the past.
This is way better than Tableau.
Well, Tableau is a beast, right? Tableau is like, the memory requirements for Tableau is ridiculous. If you're looking at Tableau, I would say look at QuickSight, which is like a fraction of the price, and it scales better. But you know, this might not be the perfect dashboard for everyone, but like it's flexible enough to configure, and it's free, man. Like, you know, it's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah, so there's permission, so set a permission, yeah, so you can.
Okay.
And the good thing is if you develop a dashboard and it's awesome, that is just a JSON file. Check it into Git or put it on the community, and then other people could leverage it. And if someone fat-fingered and deleted your dashboard, no problem. Just your data lives in Prometheus, your dashboard's a JSON file, what's the big deal? Just here you go. You know?
So does data have to live in Prometheus?
It doesn't. Well, Grafana doesn't care. Grafana is not tied to Prometheus in any way. It supports Prometheus as a data source, but you don't have to, right? But it's convenient if you're already collecting metrics through Prometheus and exposing it in Prometheus. It's just a natural progression to graph it somehow, right?
Are you thinking about like time series data in Tableau?
Yeah, there are some POCs you do, and you should have to go to Tableau. It takes you a while because you can do so much of the mesh in Tableau, but you limit it. This one seems to be more advanced. Yeah.
It's okay. There's another one that's pretty popular as well. I forget the name, but there's this one, and I think Graphite is another open source graphing thing. But this one, you know, satisfied is, you know, there's no reason for me to switch. You know, so for now, it's a good fit. Yeah. So this is the dashboard right here. Like, that's all it is. This one's pretty large though. This guy went over and beyond. Configure create dashboards for Nginx. You expose the virtual something statistics. So you could get per virtual host statistics. Again, you just expose it in Prometheus, have this contact Prometheus, and there you go. Get some nifty graphs. Any other questions?
These are running in our data center.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, how do you handle the load? So if tomorrow all of us start using this service, like impacted?
So the real concern is really just console, right? So Prometheus, it depends on your requirements for historical data. Right now, Prometheus, if it goes down and it loses its database, then it doesn't matter because we're only really concerned at this point, you know, current data, right? Going, you know, real-time data. But if you wanted to make sure your data is retained, you'd probably set up a dedicated InfluxDB, have that kind of protected, and then your Prometheus could go up and down. It doesn't matter, especially since all its configuration is held in console. You don't care, right? So your key players is your console cluster, and that's already being protected because you need Vault to be highly available, especially if you have all your other services dependent on that secret management. That has to be highly available. So it's nice to have all the target discovery, the service discovery in console, so Prometheus could go up and down. It doesn't really matter. And Grafana, again, the JSON dashboard, like just commit it and you're done, right? So.
Any questions on the phone? We have 9 or 8 participants, actually 6 participants left. We went from 15 to 6.
Didn't agree. So one thing that is not covered here is you know, you may want some, what do you call it, tracing, right? Application tracing. So like App Dynamics and their APM solution has all these, like so many different, as RUM, synthetic, and one of the nice things that they do is tracing. We don't have anything for tracing right now. Tracing is kind of a complicated thing. Your application has to be instrumented for tracing. It was really easy in App Dynamics to do the tracing because it was a Java application and you just hook into the Java machine and off you go. But in reality, you need your application instrumented to provide this information. So that's highly dependent. So if you are looking at some open source tools for application tracing, there's an initiative called Open Tracing, which tries to create a standard on how you instrument your application so that regardless if you go with Zipkin or Jaeger, you don't have to re-instrument your code, right? And yeah, the two most popular distributed tracing platforms, open source platforms, is Zipkin and Jaeger. So also Go. So very good. So like almost all of these are all Go programs, and you'll find in the web service and API space, it's really convenient because again, it's a single binary. I don't have to worry about libraries and dependencies, and it's easily portable, right? So on my Linux machine, I could create a binary for Windows, for Mac, for whatever architecture, right? So it makes a lot of sense. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Foster.